Welcome to the Space and Astronomy Podcast, where we don't just observe the universe, we really question its very nature. I am thrilled you're joining us today because we're venturing into perhaps the most mind-bending terrain of all, consciousness. But not just our consciousness. Oh no, we're going deep. We're digging into the consciousness of the alien. Imagine for a moment, what if alien life isn't just different in biology, shape of their bodies or whatever, but profoundly different in how they think, how they perceive reality, or even how they simply exist? How would alien consciousness actually differ from ours? And here's the really tough one. Could we even recognize it, like, as consciousness at all, given how incredibly alien it might be? That, right there, that's the core mission of our deep dive today. We're sifting through a really fascinating stack of sources, scientific speculation, philosophical ideas, all designed to give you a shortcut, basically, to being well-informed on this huge cosmic mystery.
Indeed. And we've pulled together an incredibly diverse range of insights. We're talking astrobiological theories, neuroscience, philosophy, a real mix. Our goal really is to challenge our fundamental assumptions. What does it even mean to be? We want to peel back the layers of what we instinctively believe is universal and instead consider, a universe possibly teeming with entirely alien forms of awareness. It's a journey into the unknown that kind of paradoxically often tells us a huge amount about ourselves. The insights we found are, frankly, surprising, definitely thought-provoking, and hopefully they'll leave you with a completely new lens, a new way to view not just potential alien life, but maybe your own mind, too.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why we have to start right here at home, before we launch into the truly alien stuff. So let's unpack this. What defines our consciousness? What makes human consciousness, human? Seems obvious, right? Until you try and pin it down.
It's such a crucial baseline, and you're right, it's often the most overlooked part of the equation. Our consciousness, the very way we perceive, feel, think, it's profoundly shaped by some very specific earthbound factors. First and foremost, for starters, we are carbon-based biological entities.
Right, carbon. Seems basic chemistry, but it matters hugely here.
Oh, absolutely. It isn't just a trivial detail, it's foundational. The chemistry of carbon allows for these incredibly complex, long-chain molecules. That's what creates the intricate biological structures needed for our neural networks. This chemical basis dictates, pretty much everything, from our metabolic rates to the actual speed at which our neurons fire.
Okay, so the basic building blocks are key. And then on top of that, our minds have been sculpted by the unique evolutionary pressures here on Earth. We're talking about the specific challenges and opportunities that led to us surviving as a species.
Exactly. Fighting off predators, finding food, adapting to changing climates. These primal needs didn't just shape our bodies, they sculpted our very ways of thinking. They carved out the pathways in our brains.
Makes sense. Survival first.
Precisely. Think about it. The need to navigate a three-dimensional world, coordinate movements, react fast to danger, remember where the good food spots were, all of this drove the development of specific cognitive functions that became, hardwired into our consciousness. We are, in essence, survival machines, and our consciousness is this incredibly sophisticated tool built for that purpose.
And a massive part of that tool set, which you just take for granted, is our reliance on our 5 primary senses. Sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. They're not just inputs, are they? They're more like filters that actually construct our reality.
That's a crucial point. They are the filters. We literally build our understanding of the universe through these specific limited channels. Our brains interpret light waves, pressure waves, chemical compounds, and that interpretation is our reality. It's not the raw data, it's the processed version.
Wow. So change the senses, change the reality.
Fundamentally. If you were to lose one of these senses, your entire experience of reality would shift dramatically. And beyond just the senses, think about the social bonding stuff we developed. Those primal survival instincts, the complex communication systems we needed to build communities. All of these have played a monumental role in shaping our mental landscape. Our need to cooperate, to warn each other, to nurture young, to teach, to learn all these social demands left an indelible mark on how our consciousness functions.
Influencing things like empathy, language, complex societies.
Exactly. Our minds are social minds, evolved for interaction within a group.
Okay, and when we talk about the physical structure behind all this, the brain itself, the sources really highlight the prefrontal cortex, right? That bit at the front.
Yes, the prefrontal cortex is critical. That highly developed part of our brain right behind your forehead is so central to driving our logic, our capacity for empathy, our awareness of time, past, present, future, and our unique ability for abstract thought.
It's like the command center for higher level thinking.
In many ways, yes. It distinguishes us from many other life forms on Earth. And what's fascinating here is how fundamentally our physical form dictates our mental form. It's not just about what our brain does, but how its very structure dictates the parameters of our conscious experience. The intricate network of neurons, the specific pathways, the density of connections, the specialized regions for language or spatial reasoning, they all contribute to the specific flavor of consciousness we possess.
Which leads to that crucial insight you mentioned earlier.
Yes, the insight that's easy to miss.
Right. The big takeaway here. What we call consciousness is just one version, a highly specialized one. It's not some universal default setting like gravity or something.
Exactly. Think about it like language or culture. It's a direct product of its specific environment, its unique evolutionary journey. We might assume it's the only way, maybe even the peak, but it's really just our way.
One pathway among potentially infinite others that evolution could take. It's a product of Earth and carbon and gravity and all the specific conditions right here. So if our consciousness is so specifically tailored to Earth, to our bodies, our senses, our evolution, what happens when we just remove those constraints entirely? Here's where it gets really interesting, because we have to try and think beyond our own perceptions.
That's where the true mind-bending begins. Because our senses aren't just tools for perception. They are, in a very real sense, the architects of our reality. They filter, they interpret, they present the world to us in a very specific way. Change the senses, and you fundamentally change the reality constructed by the mind. It's not just seeing more or less, it's seeing differently.
Think about your own senses for a second, everyone listening, and then just imagine a complete departure from that. It's easy to just say, oh, they'd see and hear like us, maybe better. But the sources give us some incredible examples right here on Earth that challenge that kind of narrow thinking.
We don't even have to leave our planet to find profoundly different ways of experiencing reality.
Like the bat.
Take the bat, exactly. It navigates and perceives the world primarily through echolocation. This isn't just a different way of hearing, it's an entirely different sensory reality. For a bat, sound waves aren't just vibrations. They paint this detailed, three-dimensional picture of its surroundings through the echoes. It's essentially seeing with sound.
Seeing with sound. That's hard to really grasp.
It is. It's constructing a world of sonic contours and textures. Imagine trying to navigate a dark room by shouting and listening. That's a crude human approximation. But for a bat, it's their default, vivid, incredibly precise reality. A world of auditory shadows and echoes that we can only conceptually understand, never truly experience.
Or consider the bee. We see a field of flowers, all reds, yellows, blues, our usual spectrum.
Right, but a bee sees ultraviolet light. It perceives colors and patterns on those same flowers that are completely invisible to us. What looks like a plain yellow petal to us might be a complex bullseye target for a bee, guiding it straight to the nectar. Imagine a world painted in UV light.
Like a secret language of light.
Exactly, a language that guides you, warns you of danger, defines beauty. How would that shift your priorities, your very understanding of what's attractive or threatening? If your entire visual world was defined by these hidden spectrums, revealing patterns we simply can't access, it would fundamentally alter their aesthetic sense, their survival instincts.
Okay, so Earth examples are already mind-blowing. Now scale this up. Apply this concept to truly alien environments. The possibilities just explode, don't they?
Exponentially.
Yeah.
What if life evolved on, say, a gas giant? A world with no solid surface, perpetual clouds stretching for thousands of miles, immense atmospheric pressures. What senses develop there?
Not sight, presumably. Not in thick cloud.
Probably not sight as we know it. Perhaps they'd perceive variations in pressure, atmospheric currents, subtle shifts in temperature, humidity. That could be their primary way of seeing their environment. Their consciousness might be inherently fluid, attuned to these grand, slow-moving weather patterns, or the delicate dance of atmospheric eddies.
Or imagine a dark, rogue planet, kicked out of its star system, tumbling alone through interstellar space. No star for light. How does consciousness even form there in eternal night?
It's a fascinating thought experiment. There's no sun for photosynthesis, no light to see by, no warmth from a parent star. Perhaps their reality would be built on thermal shifts, maybe within their own bodies or the planet itself, or sensing gravitational anomalies, vibrations through the planetary crust.
Sensing seismic murmurs across huge distances.
Possibly. Their concept of day or night would be utterly meaningless. replaced maybe by internal biological rhythms, or the eons-long drift through cosmic darkness.
And then there's the really extreme stuff, like plasma-based life near a neutron star.
Right, truly extreme. Their very existence would be dictated by electromagnetic forces, extreme energy fields, gravitational distortions we can barely imagine. How would they perceive space and time if their bodies were made of superheated ionized gas, sustained by intense radiation?
What senses could they possibly have?
Maybe they experience reality as shimmering fields of force, communicate through modulated magnetic pulses, their thoughts woven from the very fabric of space-time distortion around them. And the bigger question, how would those unique senses fundamentally shape their consciousness, their thoughts, their very perception of existence? It becomes almost impossible for us to relate, doesn't it?
Yeah, our three-dimensional, gravity-bound, light-dependent reality feels totally inadequate for even beginning to comprehend that.
It really does.
And this massive difference in senses immediately raises profound questions about the very brains these beings might possess.
Yeah.
If something perceives reality through gravity, its brain surely won't look like our, squishy gray matter.
Exactly. Which brings us to speculative alien neuroscience.
Right, so we're talking senses creating fundamentally different realities. That leads us straight into the architecture of the mind itself. Could alien brains even remotely resemble ours? It's so easy for us, based on our own biology, to assume intelligence needs something like our gray matter, organized similarly.
But the sources we looked at paint a very different, far more expansive picture.
So we need to challenge that brain-centric view.
Absolutely. The assumption that a brain must be a centralized, squishy, organic mass inside a skull is a huge limitation, a very anthropocentric view. When we consider alien neuroscience, we have to be open to consciousness emerging from something vastly different, maybe something we wouldn't even immediately call life at all.
Okay, so what are some of these really diverse models, pushing beyond our familiar biology?
Well, one intriguing possibility that keeps coming up is silicon-based life. Unlike our carbon-based chemistry, silicon offers different properties for building complex structures, especially maybe in extreme environments, high temperatures, high pressures.
And how would that affect their thinking, their processing?
Such a life form might process data in a way we could almost equate to a super advanced neural computer. Imagine the sheer speed. Information processed orders of magnitude faster than our biological neurons.
So their perception of time would be totally different.
Completely. Their capacity for computation, for memory storage and retrieval could be mind-bogglingly vast. Their thoughts might unfold in femtoseconds. Our quickest decisions would seem glacial.
It doesn't have to be a single entity, right?
Yeah.
The idea of hive minds is always fascinating, really challenges our whole concept of individuality.
It absolutely does. In a hive mind, consciousness doesn't reside in an individual brain, but emerges from the collective, a distributed network of many units.
So no single self, just collective thought.
Potentially. Imagine a swarm of millions of individual units, each may be quite simple on its own, but together forming a single, unified, sentient entity. How would communication and decision-making work?
Instantaneously.
Through
Pheromones or fields.
perhaps instant, localized pheromone signals, shared electromagnetic fields, maybe even synchronized movement patterns that convey complex ideas instantly across the whole collective. The very concept of individual agency, personal privacy, unique dreams might simply not exist, replaced by a shared conscious experience of we.
That makes me think of something even more diffuse, like those ideas of distributed intelligence.
Yeah.
Like fungus-like networks spreading across whole ecosystems, maybe even planets.
Exactly. In that scenario, consciousness isn't localized in any one brain, but is emergent. From a vast, interconnected web spanning maybe an entire planetary surface or even an asteroid field. Individual nodes might be relatively simple, but the sheer scale and complexity of the interconnections, the way information flows through this huge network, that could give rise to a form of consciousness.
But maybe much slower than ours.
Potentially vastly slower, more diffuse, yet perhaps incredibly profound in its reach and wisdom. Imagine a planetary mind experiencing slow geological shifts, climate changes over millennia. Those are its thoughts. Or communicating through subtle continental shifts in a nutrient network.
It wouldn't experience day or night, maybe just eons of slow, emergent understanding.
Precisely.
This ties into that modern theory you mentioned, integrated information theory, IIT, developed by Giulio Tononi. It tries to define consciousness separate from what it's made of.
Yes, IIT is really compelling. It proposes that consciousness arises not from specific biological bits or even the type of matter, carbon, silicon, whatever, but from the complexity of information integration within a system. Basically, if a system can generate a lot of information, and that information is highly integrated, meaning all parts are interconnected and influencing each other, then it has a high 5 value, which Tononi correlates with consciousness.
So the more integrated complexity, the more consciousness.
That's the core idea, and
Yeah.
the implication is profound. If IAT holds true, then it's not just biological organisms that could be conscious. Alien AI, complex crystalline neural lattices, those planetary scale networks we just discussed, they could all be conscious.
Wow, that vastly broadens the definition of who or what can be conscious, far beyond brains.
It moves us from what consciousness is made of to how it functions, how information comes together into a unified whole.
So if we're talking such radically different structures, silicon, hives, networks,
Yeah.
it really makes you question what we consider fundamental mental operations. Like, what if their structure doesn't need sleep, or emotion, or memory the way ours does?
Exactly. We assume these are universal aspects because they're essential to us, deeply tied to our specific biological needs for rest, survival, learning. But what if an alien brain, say, could process and store all information perfectly and instantly? Would it need sleep for memory consolidation? Maybe not. They might never rest in our sense.
Or if their existence didn't need the kind of emotional responses that drive our survival.
Right. Could they be pure logic, operating solely on reason and calculation, processing vast data sets with absolute dispassion?
Or the opposite pure sensation. Just experiencing the universe as raw data, no analysis.
Or pure sensation, yes. An unfiltered stream without any analytical overlay. And the very idea of an ego, that distinct, persistent sense of I, that might be entirely alien to them, especially for hive or distributed intelligences.
It really forces us to analyze how these alternative neural architectures, as you call them, just break down our assumptions about what a conscious mind even does.
They shatter the mold.
And if their brains are so different, then what about their fundamental reasoning? Our logic feels so universal. A equals A.
It does. This is where it gets really abstract, but also incredibly important. We operate on this logic system, Aristotelian logic basically, where A is A and A is not B. A cat is a cat, not a dog. It feels inherently correct, the bedrock of rational thought. Our whole science, our philosophy, it's built on it.
Feels universal, yeah.
But our sources challenge that directly. What we call irrational in our framework might be perfectly rational in an alien context, based on entirely different underlying principles or axioms about reality. Their understanding of truth or validity could be completely foreign to us, emerging from different physical laws maybe, or even different social structures.
Okay, so what could these alternative logics even look like, if not our linear AA system? That's really hard to wrap your head around.
Well, imagine thought patterns that aren't linear or binary at all, maybe multidimensional, fractal, recursive.
Fractal logic, how would that work?
A fractal logic might mean that a small part of an idea contains the entire idea, endlessly repeating its core structure at different scales. Our step-by-step reasoning would seem incredibly slow and limited in comparison.
So instead of a chain of premises to a conclusion.
Maybe it's a single, complex image or sensation that instantly conveys all its nested implications. Or recursive logic, where arguments constantly loop back on themselves. Meaning isn't built through sequential deduction, but through these self-referential patterns. The beginning is the end is the beginning. A complete, non-linear conceptual loop.
Wow, that's a massive leap. And the sources even speculate about logic based on quantum entanglement or hyperdimensional thought. Can you even paint a picture of that? Our physics is still grappling with this stuff.
Well, think about it. Our classical logic is built on discrete states, clear distinctions, locality. A affects B because they interact directly. But quantum entanglement implies this reality where two particles separated by vast distances can be instantaneously linked, influencing each other without any apparent communication channel.
Spooky action at a distance.
Right. So a logic system based on that principle might allow for simultaneous non-local reasoning. Conclusions aren't reached by sequential steps, but by the instantaneous correlation of vast interconnected data points across maybe a cosmic scale and hyperdimensional thought. Well, that could involve processing information across multiple conceptual dimensions we can't even perceive. Dimensions of time, possibility, pure concept, leading to insights that seem completely nonsensical or paradoxical in our limited 3D linear world.
Like trying to understand a complex knot by only seeing one thread.
Exactly like that.
And it's not just the brain structure. Language plays a huge role here too, right?
Yeah.
Our linear language, word after word, sentence after sentence, seems to shape our linear thought.
Precisely. The very structure of our sentences, subject, verb, object, encourages this cause and effect, step-by-step understanding of reality. But what if their language isn't linear? What if it's holographic, spoken in time loops or color?
Communicating in color or time loops, how would that even work?
Imagine a single utterance, maybe a burst of light, a complex scent, even a shifting gravitational field conveying an entire narrative, a whole argument, a multi-layered concept all at once, not sequentially. Communicating like that would inherently change how logic is constructed and understood. It'd be less about parsing words and more about perceiving holistic patterns of meaning. You wouldn't read a thought, you'd experience it maybe as a complete intricate tapestry.
And it pushes the idea even further. Could their consciousness itself be expressed externally, as a dance, a scent, a gravitational field? We assume consciousness is internal thought, but maybe not for them.
This really challenges our definition of thinking and understanding. We tend to tie these concepts to language or at least some internal monologue or mental image. But if an alien species communicates its logic through intricate dance patterns understood universally by them, or through pheromones carrying complex data, or even modulated gravitational waves, then our methods of communication and comprehension would be utterly inadequate.
We wouldn't even know where to start.
Exactly. It forces us to push beyond our human-centric models of what a mind is, to embrace the possibility of consciousness as pure external expression.
Okay, so different brains, different logic. What about the most arguably human of experiences, emotion? Do aliens even feel? Or is that just us?
That's another huge question. Would aliens feel? Or are emotions just these evolutionary responses perfectly tuned for our survival here on Earth? It's provocative because, yeah, we assume feelings are universal.
So are they just biological programming?
The sources strongly suggest they might be, at least our specific emotions. When we examine our own feelings, they're deeply intertwined with our biological needs, our evolutionary history. Fear, for instance, it's not just a subjective feeling, it's powerful, near-instantaneous biological programming. Helps us avoid danger, react quickly, survive.
And love helps us bond, reproduce, raise kids.
Right, ensuring the continuation of the species. Curiosity drives exploration, learning, adaptation, innovation. These aren't just abstract feelings, they're highly effective biological programs that have served us well in Earth's specific context.
So, if an alien species didn't need bonding, maybe they reproduce asexually, or if they live somewhere with no physical threats, pure energy beings, or a utopia with no competition, would they evolve fear or empathy?
Our sources suggest it's a distinct possibility they simply wouldn't. Or if they did, those emotions would serve a completely different purpose, maybe unrecognizable to us.
Because emotions are costly, biologically speaking.
They are. They require energy, they can lead to irrational decisions overriding logic, they can be debilitating. If the specific environmental pressures that selected for those emotions in us were absent for an alien species, there'd be no evolutionary reason for them to develop those same feelings. Their minds might operate on a completely dispassionate analytical level, processing information with perfect objectivity, or maybe in ways we can't conceive, totally devoid of our emotional spectrum. They might see our emotional volatility as inefficient, maybe even a weakness.
But then there's the even wilder idea. What if they had entirely alien emotions? Ones we can't even name because they don't map onto anything in our experience.
This is where the real speculation takes off, challenging our anthropocentric view of the emotional landscape. Imagine an emotion born from cosmic phenomena completely foreign to us, like awe at entropy, a profound, maybe beautiful sense of peace derived from the gradual, inevitable decay of the universe. Instead of our usual fear or sense of loss associated with decay, for them, it might be the ultimate expression of cosmic harmony.
Or joy in radiation. That sounds lethal to us.
Right. But imagine finding ecstasy in the very energy that would kill us, because their life form thrives on it, absorbing it like we absorb sunlight, feeling pure bliss in its embrace.
Or melancholy during solar flares, feeling sad when the sun acts up.
Exactly. A deep, pervasive sadness linked to intense energy bursts that, for them, might signify disruption, pain, maybe a period of stagnation in their vital energy supply.
So these wouldn't just be intellectual observations for them, but real, genuine, subjective experiences,
Right.
driving their actions.
Precisely. If their biology and environment led to such unique needs and perceptions, their emotional responses would be tailored to those conditions. Maybe for a species communicating via energy fields, joy in radiation is akin to our feeling of connection, enabling their collective consciousness to resonate and thrive. It really pushes us to recognize our emotional spectrum isn't universal. It's not the only possible set of feelings. It opens a door to this infinite array of unknown subjective experiences, maybe completely unintelligible to us.
Making emotional connection or empathy incredibly difficult, maybe impossible.
Very possibly. They might experience what we call love as a specific vibrational frequency, or anger as a painful disruption in a communal energy field. Who knows?
And if emotions are so different, what about something even more fundamental, like how they perceive time, or even their own existence, their sense of self?
Ah, yes, time and self. Concepts so ingrained in our being, it's almost impossible to imagine them differently.
Right. We experience time linearly, past, present, future. We remember, anticipate, regret. We have this clear sense of our own individual self, distinct from others, with personal memories, a unique identity. But what if that's just us, a human construct?
You've hit on it. Our linear time experience, our distinct sense of self, they are not the only possible realities for consciousness. Time perception especially is deeply tied to the nature and processing speed of consciousness itself. Our brains are wired for sequential processing, for building narratives, understanding causality as a progression. But other forms of consciousness might not be.
And we could even see hints of variation here on Earth, right? Which suggests these concepts are flexible.
Absolutely. Some animals, for instance, don't seem to have episodic memory, the ability to mentally re-experience past events. They might live largely in the present moment, reacting to immediate stimuli, their self purely reactive to now.
And even human cultures vary. Some treat time cyclically, not as a straight line.
Exactly. Seeing time as repeating patterns, seasons, generations, cosmic cycles, rather than an irreversible march forward, that alone shifts how urgency, planning, regret are perceived. Events aren't truly gone, they're just awaiting their return in the cycle.
Okay, so now take that concept and push it to the extreme. Alien perceptions. Imagine a species that lives for seconds but processes information millions of times faster. What's that conscious experience like?
Almost incomprehensible to us. Our entire lives, our history, our conversations, human civilization itself might unfold for them in what we perceive as a fraction of a second, a fleeting flicker.
Making decisions in nanoseconds that take us months?
Exactly. Imagine that. It would fundamentally impact their decision-making, their perception of events, social interaction. A casual greeting for them might contain the informational density of an entire human novel, complex data, emotional states, all exchanged in milliseconds. Concepts like patience or waiting would be utterly foreign, maybe even agonizing. Their subjective time moves so fast. Their entire existence could happen in what we call a moment.
Or the opposite end. A species living for millennia, thinking in epochs, not minutes. What's a day mean to them? Our lifespans would be less than a breath.
For such epical beings, yes, our lives would be a blink, an imperceptible flicker. How would urgency, planning, memory even function? A major project for them might span thousands of our years. Plans laid out over geological timescales, considering continental drift, stellar evolution.
Day and year become meaningless.
Completely. Their primary time units might be their star's orbital period, or the drift of continents, the rise and fall of civilizations. Their memory would span vast cosmic events, galaxy formations, solar system decay.
Individual death might not even register in the same way.
Maybe not, given their immense lifespans. Or perhaps they have a collective memory transcending individuals, a species-wide consciousness accumulating knowledge over eons.
And then there's the really mind-blowing idea. A species that doesn't even experience self, just exists as a continuum of process, getting rid of the fundamental I entirely.
This truly challenges our deepest assumptions about individuality. What would identity, individuality, agency mean in that context? If there's no singular, persistent I, just a flow of consciousness moving through forms or distributed across a network, then our concepts of personal responsibility, ambition, even individual suffering might be moot.
Like a river flowing. The river is the entity, not the water molecules.
That's a good analogy. A continuous process without a distinct start or end for any single part. Their self might be the river itself. How would they define purpose or meaning without an individual to experience it?
And that leads to a profound empathy gap, doesn't it? Could such beings understand our urgency, our fear of death, our dreams of personal legacy?
It would be incredibly difficult, maybe impossible, to bridge that gap. Our deepest drives and anxieties, fear of mortality, pursuit of legacy, dreams of achievement, might just register as incomprehensible noise to a being that thinks in epochs and has no concept of a distinct individual self.
They might just view our short, frantic lives with detached curiosity. unable to grasp the intensity of our joys or sorrows.
It's very possible.
And these profound differences, they aren't random, are they? They're often tied back to how a species adapts. Environment as the ultimate sculptor.
Exactly right. Consciousness isn't just a switch flipped on. It evolves specifically to meet environmental and survival needs. It's an adaptive tool.
So let's speculate. How would different environments sculpt the very nature of alien consciousness, making it perfectly suited for its niche?
This is where evolutionary psychology really meets astrobiology. The physical and social pressures of a planet or a star or a nebula would inevitably shape the mental traits needed to survive and flourish. Consciousness is a solution to specific problems presented by the environment.
Okay, let's start with a classic. A predator species. What would their consciousness be like if their whole existence is hunting?
You'd anticipate a consciousness forged for efficiency, cunning, ruthless effectiveness, hyper-awareness, constantly scanning visually, auditorily, thermally, maybe pressure changes. Their minds would likely be inherently tactical, excelling at advanced planning, predicting prey movements, complex hunting strategies. Patience and stealth would be paramount.
And empathy. Probably not much.
Probably absent or severely muted. It would hinder their primary function. Their satisfaction might come from the perfect execution of a hunt, the act of consumption itself.
Okay, flip side. A prey species. Consciousness shaped by constant threat.
For prey, consciousness would be dominated by vigilance, a pervasive sense of urgency. Constant low-level anxiety as a default state, fostering hypersensitivity to patterns indicating danger. Strong emphasis likely on group decision-making, collective action. Individual survival hinges on the herd's safety. Highly developed pattern detection skills.
Focus on immediate survival, collective well-being.
Yes, often sacrificing individual needs for group safety. Cooperation, instantaneous communication would be key mental traits.
What about something totally different like photosynthetic life? Getting energy from a star, not eating others. How does that affect consciousness?
Imagine life anchored like a sentient plant, drawing energy directly from a star. Cognition might be incredibly slow by our standards, operating maybe on geological timescales, mirroring photosynthesis itself. But they could have this wide passive awareness, a profound sense of peace, interconnectedness with their environment, deeply attuned to cycles of light nutrient flow.
Their thoughts might be the subtle shifts in light temperature.
Exactly, leading to a deep contemplative consciousness utterly devoid of urgency, ambition, aggression. Their memories might be built into their physical structure, growth rings recording eons of solar cycles.
And nocturnal cave dwellers. No sight in perpetual darkness.
Right. Enhanced sound and pressure sensitivity would be paramount. Memory built not on visual cues, but intricate patterns of vibrations, echoes, air pressure shifts, water flow. Consciousness could experience surroundings as a feeling of space, a complex tapestry woven from sound and tactile info, not a visual map. Dreams might be symphonies of echoes, dances of pressure gradients, social interactions via complex vibrational communication.
Direction sense tied to magnetic fields or thermal variations, maybe?
Possibly.
And finally, aquatic hive species. Consciousness as a collective pool, like a vast underwater network.
That's a fascinating one. Individual consciousness might truly merge into a larger collective mind, maybe through shared chemical signals in the water or direct neural links via physical contact, communicating, sharing experiences through shared memory bios perhaps, telepathic links across oceans, where consciousness as a collective pool is the norm.
Implications for individual identity are huge. Maybe none exists.
Perhaps no individual identity, only the greater consciousness of the hive. Collective knowledge instantly accessible. Decisions made by a unified mental process. No I, only we. Existence intrinsically tied to the collective's health.
So it really hammers home the idea. Each environment creates its own unique version of self, others, now truth, profoundly shaping their entire existence.
Precisely. The evolutionary path, driven by environmental demands and resources, sculpts not just biology, but their very way of perceiving, thinking, feeling, interacting, reinforces the vast spectrum of what conscious existence could be, far beyond our limited human experience, makes our own awareness just one fascinating point on a huge map.
Which leads us to the ultimate, maybe humbling challenge. If consciousness is so varied, can we ever truly hope to comprehend it?
That is the grand challenge.
So after all this incredible speculation, all these mind-bending possibilities, we have to ask the hardest question. Can we ever truly understand alien consciousness? It feels like we keep hitting the limits of our own perception, right? Our human brain, our experience, it's our only reference point.
We are, and that's a crucial dose of humility we have to embrace. Carl Sagan famously said, "We are like butterflies who flutter for a day and think it is forever." That analogy perfectly captures our limited perspective in the grand cosmic scheme. Our existence is so fleeting, our senses and cognition so specialized for Earth, it's profoundly difficult to imagine something utterly alien, something operating on entirely different principles of being.
And that butterfly analogy goes beyond just lifespan, doesn't it? It's about a fundamental limit of perception.
Absolutely. Just as a butterfly, with its short life and simple nervous system focused on simply comprehend the internet, this vast, complex, unseen network shaping our human existence. Perhaps we cannot comprehend alien minds operating on entirely different principles. Their reality might be built on dimensions we can't perceive, energies we can't detect, communication invisible and unintelligible to us, like Wi-Fi signals to a butterfly.
We could be swimming in a sea of alien thoughts and not even know it.
It's a possibility.
And yet, there's hope, right?
Yeah.
SETI exists. Astrobiologists are working on this. There's this fundamental belief we can bridge the gap, decode signals, understand not just existence, but maybe their thoughts.
That hope is vital. It drives science, human curiosity. We develop more sophisticated tools, models, theories. The challenge, though, isn't just getting a signal or even translating a language, if they have one. The biggest challenge the sources highlight, and it's sobering, is we may not recognize intelligence if it doesn't mirror our own.
Because we tend to anthropomorphize, see ourselves everywhere.
Exactly. We project our cognitive structures onto what we observe. If alien intelligence communicates via modulated gravity waves, or by subtly altering the cosmic microwave background, or through a planetary biochemical process influencing weather, we might just dismiss it as natural phenomena.
Not recognizing it as deliberate, conscious action.
There's a very real risk of dismissing something profoundly intelligent simply because it doesn't fit our preconceived notions of what intelligence looks like or how it should behave.
This really balances the excitement of discovery with these profound, humbling challenges of true interspecies understanding. But even if we never meet them, never understand them, just asking these questions changes us, doesn't it? The journey itself is transformative.
It absolutely is. Studying alien consciousness isn't just about them. It reflects back on us in the most profound ways. It forces us to ask some of the deepest, most fundamental questions about our own existence, our reality, our place in the cosmos.
It really holds a mirror up to humanity, shows us our biases, our limits, and maybe the sheer wonder of our own unique consciousness too.
It does. When we contemplate these vastly different forms of existence, it forces us to reevaluate our foundational assumptions about everything we think we know.
So we're forced to ask again, what is consciousness? A question for millennia. But considering a silicon mind processing in microseconds, or a fungus network thinking over geological time, or a creature feeling joy in radiation, it broadens the scope infinitely. Is it just information processing? Awareness? The soul? Something else? The alien lens makes us shed our narrow human definitions.
And it directly challenges our perceived uniqueness, our human-centric view. Are we alone in how we think, or only in where we are? It forces us to distinguish biological uniqueness, our carbon-based form, from cognitive uniqueness. Is our brand of consciousness, with its emotions, logic, time perception, truly singular, or just one of countless variations? It moves beyond "are we alone" to the much more nuanced "are we alone like this?"
And finally, maybe the most unsettling yet liberating question. What defines reality if minds can differ so vastly? If a bat experiences reality via echolocation, a bee via UV, an alien via gravity fields or time loops, is there an objective universal reality at all? Or is reality always, fundamentally, a construct of the perceiving consciousness, an interpretation unique to each mind?
That's the ultimate thought that lingers, isn't it? If consciousness is so fluid, so shaped by environment and evolution, then what we perceive as the world is inherently subjective. Filtered through our unique apparatus, the universe doesn't present a single immutable truth. It presents myriad truths, each tailored to the mind experiencing it. Maybe understanding the alien mind will be the final mirror humanity holds up to itself, revealing not just what they are, but what we truly are in the vast cosmic tapestry. Just one fascinating, improbable expression of consciousness among infinite possibilities.
Wow, what an incredible deep dive. Truly mind-expanding stuff, thinking about consciousness beyond our own. Thank you so much for joining us on the Space and Astronomy podcast. If this deep dive expanded your mind, please consider leaving a review, maybe share it with your fellow cosmic thinkers, and definitely subscribe for more journeys across time, space, and thought. Next time, we'll dive into another big question, one that really redefines our understanding of the universe. Can gravity transcend space and time? Until then, keep questioning the cosmos, because the truth may be stranger than space itself.